How do you grow games in 2025? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. My name is John Koetsier. We're doing a special series. It's going to be super cool. We're going to be talking about how to grow games, what to do, what's working, what's maybe not working. If you can do some cool stuff in measurement and creative in other areas of growing games. And it's a mini series. In the first one, we're going to be talking about creative. We've got the co-founder of GeekLab. His name is Jesse Lempiäinen. And I got that totally wrong, but I'll get it right in post. And we also have from Singular, Neils Beenen. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining.
Thanks a ton for having me and having you.
Hey, super pumped to be doing this. Looking forward to building something that's super cool for game marketers. I'm going to ask Jesse right off the top. Hey, what's working today?
Well, that's a good question. It really depends on what you're looking for. Um, a lot of different trends that like range then over a bigger, wider scope. One of the things that we often see, see like frequently now is definitely the gate videos. As weird as it may seem, somehow, regardless of the actual it does seem that the creators with the gates are at this very moment as we're recording this, more or less the king of the hill.
I'm not 100% sure if I'm understanding you. Did you say gated video?
Yes. So I'm talking about the ones where you have a group of either minions, units or whatever, and then different type of gates that you're shooting or going past, and then you're getting more units and stuff like that. And
Okay.
then there's other ones marching and so on. Playing a
Gotcha.
bit with this like success and fail type of a creatives that we used to have a lot the past couple of years, but
Cool.
now with this new mechanism as well.
Cool. Awesome. What have you seen changing? And, as we're going to get into this, we're going to get into what you see coming in 2025 and all that stuff. But what do you see in the space of game marketing that's really changing right now?
Yeah. Well, in terms of creatives as well, I think um, we're gonna pick into getting more and more like into a situation where things will get more saturated. That's mainly because of it's easier to create and replicate creatives with the help of AI and other templates. I'm sure we're gonna jump in with this in more detail. So it's gonna get very crowded and saturated, which is why IPs and like them playing with like actual real influencers and stuff in the UGC ads, as an example, have already started to become more or less the new trend, I'd say.
That's a good point that you're making because we just did a webinar on creative. We had a bunch of experts there and they're talking about, hey, I make one creative and then I use AI to make like 25 versions of it or something like that, right? And so the amount of the number of creatives is just growing exponentially with little effort. Of course, you can make all the creative you want, but there's a testing cost that might be very significant if you have thousands of them.
Mm. Yes. Yeah, and definitely, I think with UGC, we had this short era where um, it was easy. You had like a influencer, then you that like fake influencer even on the top of the screen and gameplay on the bottom, and then the face moved accordingly, and it sounded good enough for you to kind of feel that it was a UGC. Whereas now, it's more. Well, as an example, just Brawl Stars had some creatives running where there was this couple of kids doing some fun stuff that went viral on TikTok on college campuses. So now they were actually partnering up with them, making UGC content with the real influencers, so that it actually looks and feels like it's part of the feed, right? So I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Okay. Very, very cool. I mean, UGC is interesting, right? I mean, it can totally knock it out of the park, right? And then it can totally fall flat. Of course, not too challenging if it's pure UGC and it's basically free because somebody has made it. Or if it's a little bit, well, you've got an influencer and they're making it, then you can control it a little bit and hopefully make it better. What are you seeing, Niels?
I think one of the things that partners are talking about a lot is the creative hook. So in a very crowded landscape right now, you see that the first 2 seconds of that video that you're launching in front of your users are really going to suck them in. And those are the users that are also going to be installing the app, right? So they can have a detrimental impact on your click rates and your conversion rates. A wider thing to observe here is definitely the usage of AI. So if you go back maybe 2-3 years in time, we spend quite a lot of resources in trying to figure out why is a specific creative performing or not. Right now we can see, hey, is it because of the purple background, because of the green background? Is it because of like the specific wording that's being used? Is it because the people or the characters in that creative look a specific way?
Yeah.
These are things that are also leading to what you're describing as a massive influx or an exponential growth of the numbers of creative also being launched on the various networks. So that's one thing that we're seeing. Secondly, on the influencer side, everyone is talking about celebrities. I think that has like a limited success potential for studios. I think it kind of depends as well on who your target audience are, how wide that can be, or like, can you actually find the right influencer there? But they also use different creators than like maybe the videos that you're using, right? So you're also looking at producing different assets. So there's a lot of movement in the market right now.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's interesting because I was just chatting with somebody and they're saying that they were spending 30% of their budget on testing. And that makes some sense. Some will spend less, some will spend more. Some who are doing more are saying, hey, I have to evaluate my success rate in testing, so my conversions and installs during testing, as well as when I'm finished my testing. And if I'm not losing too much of those conversions while I'm testing, then I'm testing high quality stuff and I can test more. I can actually use 50 or 80% of my budget. And only when I identify some sort of unicorn creative that's beating everything, do I then go all in on that.
Exactly.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Yes, and the unfortunate thing is that quite often the unicorn creatives are the ones that like whenever you do like a bigger refresh, so like specifically, well, my knowledge also is like more honestly to be speaking in the self-attributed network side. So we're talking about Meta, TikTok, and Google and these guys. But they're quite often like when you do like a new refresh. So even though you still need to continuously supply with more ads into the mix to keep the campaigns healthy, quite often the earliest creatives sort of tend to then become the unicorns, and then it's a continuous fight to get beyond that. We just had we had a case study of this as well up on our site, but with Talofa Games based in San Francisco, our CTO actually came up with this idea that, why don't we just like mock the iMessage, thing and have a conversation between a wife and a husband about like, he should exercise more. And then this game features like fitness and health as well as gaming. So then it's a very solid mix. Perfect idea, good execution. And then it was one of the first creatives that we did. So now we're really much into the trouble of figuring out how the hell can we actually beat it anymore. And our CTO can laugh every time knowing that he's actually the most creative mind in our
A
company.
CTO. Wow. I mean,
Yes.
like, yeah, exactly. Hey, crazy. It's a good problem to have. You have a well-performing creative, but it is frustrating when, you want to evolve the story, you want to evolve the marketing, and you want to beat it, and you just can't. Sometimes it's just where you are. We talked about influencers, we talked about celebrities. What about characters from the games? We see that sometimes, maybe a Rovio, you see some of the Angry Birds, or you see that, different mobile games. You see has a core character or something that they use in the marketing. Are you finding success with that?
Yeah, I think we've seen like different ways of doing this successfully. One great successful example is what Metacore, right next to us here in Helsinki. What they're doing, they're actually building up the IP, doing live action. They had the amazing collaboration with Pedro Pascal earlier as well, and this is perfect. they're reutilizing those assets a lot and really building everything around those characters while tying it together with the game nicely. And then on the other side, we have, I would say, less recognizable characters, but also within more or less the same genre, where we see a lot of even sexist ads where like, these characters are used to really put emotions into you, but not necessarily in a similar manner than in Metacore, where you're actually building an IP and putting story into the character.
And I think that's the way to go if you're building an IP, because that's super interesting, because you see that there are some mobile studios that have kind of evolved beyond. I mean, they're still super strong on mobile, but they've evolved beyond. There's maybe a movie franchise with it. There's plushy soft toys or something like that. And then you've got something that actually, whoa, there's significant growth in a lot of different places there. That's amazing. You've broken out of one category. You're a multi-category brand now. And you're a brand. You're not a gaming company. You're actually a brand. And that has huge benefits in terms of click-through rate quite frequently when people start to know that sort of thing, and also conversion rate when they actually get to the App Store or Google Play. I want to talk a little. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, so just quickly to add on that as well, like 100%. And then a well-deserved, but still a buzzword that's been around now lately is transmedia, right? So also like that's something that like you can't really do unless you have like a strong IP. You can't go successfully into multiple different forms of media. And again, just to tie it back to what we discussed earlier with what Neil said as well, like that there will be fatigue because of AI allowing you to just create like so many assets massively. Again, these will be the key distinguishable things, that you have an IP, you have something that's actually only for you, something that people will recognize and you can leverage on that.
It is really interesting, Niels, actually, because you do see, I've talked to some people from Supercell, and they'll create like a very small amount of creative, and they'll use it for 6 months, 9 months, a year or something like that. And they'll just go with it, and they're super successful. And hey, but not everybody can do what somebody else does. Others will create literally tens of thousands of items of creative to use and test. It's a crazy world. I guess different things work for different people, Niels.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like the ad fatigue, right? I mean, there's a couple of things that people can do. And first and foremost, generally speaking, when it comes to onboarding new players, it's also to demonstrate, what am I actually going to play, right? So that focus on the gameplay itself. Now, if you're a game that's been in the market for a long time, you also want to continuously add new elements. And what can that be? It can be, for example, content updates, informing players or potential players in what's new in your game. It can be new characters, for example, right? Or it can be like a skin, but also adding a level where players can become curious about your game, adding emotions to an ad as well. The emotional part here is interesting because you're looking to connect to various audiences. Now, without spelling out like what the variety of audiences are, different people react to different calls to action and react to different types of emotions, right? So if you want to play around with creative and like looking to what actually is generating those click rates and what is going to convert, then those are a couple of things that you can start with when you do your iterations.
That makes a ton of sense. I absolutely love that. I mean, we're emotional creatures with that. Most of our decisions, we logic our way into them after the fact because we made a decision that we just want to do. Yes, I want to ask you something about creative, because I was talking to a marketer literally yesterday, and they were saying that you have to be careful about making your creative so amazing and so intriguing and so interesting that you generate a high click-through rate, but then it's not actually the experience that somebody has when they get in your game. And so you generate a low conversion rate. Even if you get the install, they don't actually stick around and do stuff. Talk about that tension.
Beautiful question, because one of the key metrics that I like, as a marketeer, like this is something that I love to preach about. The key metric that you should really follow is not as a marketeer just to like installs per mil or something like this that purely takes a look at only the marketing side. Just do installs per mil and multiply that with day one retention, and with that you get like this combination of extremely effective marketing, but then you'll get a hold of like whether the users actually understood and felt the game that you were marketing them towards. So with that metric, you'll get in both. And I think like a good example of this is all the mini game apps that we've had recently, right? Well, there's been now like then a lot of development sort of in the games themselves feature some of those mini games and such. But I think it always goes back to something that we already like saw. I think that was 7 years ago. Whilst I was back at Rovio, we're doing this 80s type of action game, Forex game, well, honestly, Forex games, the gameplay is quite horrendous to watch it. Like, you're essentially clicking the UI, right? Like there's nothing happening. It's all about like the mental fantasy that you're selling. So back then we were having a lot of debate, like, is this okay? We're kind of like taking our gameplay to the users and stuff. And there, like my argument was that we are not. Like if we're actually selling you a mental vision about you leading your army in the 80s, going and, fighting some bad guys and saving a damsel in distress, right? So that's what the game is all about. Compared then to well, and I won't name a company but like, let's say that there was like a butler that is fixing up their mansion. And then all of a sudden you see a creative where like they're going around and taking flowers, punching a bad guy and handing the flowers to a like again, a damsel in distress. So kind of essentially two same type of concepts, but at the same time, I'd argue that the way we did at Rovio did it, that was so that we actually got players into the game that knew exactly what they were about to do. Whereas then in this other case, then you end up on the game and you're all about like matching some puzzles and fixing up your mansion, and you can't see the damsel, you can't see the bad guy, you barely can even see the butler. So there's a mismatch, I'd say.
And I 100% agree with you. And I have literally deleted games in 30 seconds or something like that that I've downloaded because I got sucked into it. You're sort of scrolling through and you got to like maybe shoot these things and you get more power. And then, some bigger things come at you and stuff like that. I think, okay, cool. I'll try that. Whatever. Why not? And then I get in there and it's actually like building and it's like world building. And I'm like, no, dude, I don't want to build stuff. I just want to shoot stuff. Okay. So
Yes.
boom, done, gone. Okay.
Yes.
I want to hit a little bit of partner and channel strategy, but our focus is creative. So I want to stick there. It's really interesting because if you look at what like a Meta is doing or a Google is doing, and all the others are getting into this sort of thing as well, is they're taking all the bits and pieces of the creative that you've got, a little bit of text, a little bit of copy here and everything like that. And they're mixing and mashing and boom, out comes something. And they'll test and they'll see what works and there we'll go. How's that working for you? Is that working, or do you prefer to be in control of your creative? Yes, you first, and then we'll go to Neils.
Like I can't say that there's a definite answer. Like quite often we do apply the stuff because my mentality is that if the network, like Meta as an example, if they are offering something, and they have like a vast space, vast set of data that they are basing, hopefully at least those optimizations of. So just applying those should yield into better results. Kind of A/B testing those against like having those on and not having those on. We haven't really done that in such a manner that I could say definitely like what would work and what not. Sometimes we've seen that like when some stuff like, but this is not necessarily that much in creatives, more in the placements and stuff like Advantage Plus and these things. When they come, and if you're one of the first adopters, then there might be some issues. But in terms of creative optimization, like how the networks might like actually build on top of those, add music to your image or like do that stuff, we've been kind of all up for it. Again, might be a bit of a different story if you have like a very, very strict brand guideline and you know exactly like, okay, well, this is the only stuff that we can do. So then you might be a bit limited. Right?
Exactly. So it could depend a little bit on kind of your maturity as a studio, as a publisher. Like I have a brand, I want to protect my brand. It's important in multiple arenas. and maybe you don't. I mean, Niels, it's a super interesting challenge, right? I mean, the big platforms, they have immense amounts of data. They're all moving into not just mix and match ads, but generative AI ads. And ultimately, perhaps the vision, maybe pipe dream, I don't know, is like they'll make one ad just for you, just today, because they know that you're feeling pretty good. And then today, and you just had your coffee and all is well. And then they'll give you this happy ad. And then tomorrow you're feeling depressed. And I don't know, this the perfect ad for you at this moment in time. Your thoughts there, Niels?
Yeah, for me, it's like a bit difficult to comment on that. One, I would totally understand that if you look at what the networks are getting out of producing a well-performing creative, there's actually revenue for them, right? So what is actually going to click and what is going to convert? Now, if you're a studio that is looking to compete with the largest spenders in the market, then that is an offer that I will probably like gladly take a Meta or like any large other network on. If not, you're going to have to look at like different networks that in terms of size are considerably smaller. So that is like the one more straightforward thing that I like to think about.
Mm-hmm.
The second is more, and you mentioned this at the start of the podcast, if we are spending about 30% of our overhead in trying to figure out what is actually performing, then we might as well rely on AI partners to actually do that for us. Or we might actually rely on our network partners to tell us what to do so we can actually free up our time to create completely new concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting one, right? Because if the channel does it, the channel gets the learnings. If you do it, you get the learnings, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't care. I just want the results,
Yeah.
and that might be the most efficient way to go.
My main thing, like I've been in gaming also for quite some time, and I'm one of those people like I snoop around in all of the Slack channels to see like what are people talking about. And very often what we're seeing is, hey, I've got a type of game in a particular vertical. I'm running my ad on a particular platform. Hey, everyone else in the room, can you tell me your success stories? Can you tell me what is actually working best? Well, no shit, Sherlock. Like the networks can actually tell you exactly that as well. But what is the outcome going to be here? Is that we're actually going to be launching exactly the same creative ideas on exactly the same networks for exactly the same games?
Yeah.
I think that if at the same time we're looking at how do we actually get then the user's attention, right? How do you break through a bombardment of ads in games? Then probably you want to design something that actually is going to be standing out.
Yes.
So leave the iteration part to the networks, in my opinion, and focus your time on something where it's like, hey, hang on a second, I actually came up with an idea that is standing out from the rest.
I love that idea. I love that thought. And I just talked to a marketer the other day, and they were saying, like, I asked this question, and they say they leave about 5% of the time resources for total craziness, total
Yes.
insanity, total left field ideas. And, just like literally one of them was get my 5-year-old to design the ad. Right.
Yeah.
And the idea is just to literally did that. And the idea is just to break out of that box. We're all in a box. We think we're out of the box. We're in the box. And, to break out of that and just do something different, and maybe half of them will fail, maybe 99% of them fail, but 1% of them will just be this crazy breakout, immense success story.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, we've got
sorry, John.
no worries.
There is a lot of discussion, of course, around, hey, like misleading ads, for example, or vulgar ads, like why are they perform? Maybe because they're sexist. Maybe ads that have nothing to do with the game. The common demeanor here is that these are actually new types of ads, right? It actually was catching people's attention. So again, that 5% rule is something I'd completely subscribe to for everyone that actually can allow that time to be invested.
Yeah.
Agree.
Cool. Guys, we got to land the plane, and we promised at the top, we're going to talk about what is going to be working in 2025. What's going to be the big breakout strategy of 2025? So this is the easiest question on the podcast. I mean, super simple. I mean, who would have any trouble answering this one? Yes. Like, give me some of your thoughts as to what will work in 2025.
Just follow these 3 steps and you'll
exactly. You will succeed every time.
Yeah. Now, well, again, parts of this were mentioned that I want to highlight again. So I think like investing building up your IP, because that will then become an advantage as the fatigue will like sort of build up with the capabilities of AI. creating like a shit ton of more creatives a lot faster. But then another thing is that like a privacy sandbox is well, maybe 25 is now the year, and things are happening, right? So really figure out like what your creative testing pipeline is, like how you can measure these things, and that will be one of the key things. We have a solution to self-attributing networks to some extent. Then all the SDK networks and DSPs have to total behemoth. Like you guys will definitely fix that. So figuring out like what are the actual ways to be able to test and measure specifically how your creatives work.
Cool. Niels, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think we will see like a further advancement of AI. And then especially when it comes to the personalization of ads, like really speaking to the specific person that you're targeting, like in the environment that person is at. It's regardless here if we're talking about this being a user on TikTok or on Meta or like a DSP targeting them. It is already knowing what typically is performing within the ad. What is the hook that's performing? Like have it optimize it towards like background, wording, et cetera, but then also like who is a persona that I'm targeting to. So I think that is like a layer. Then in 2025, we'll see a lot more of.
Very, very cool. Thank you guys.
Thank you.